price of freedom is death. We're coming to get our check.
Black First brothers and sisters, welcome to the Afro Elite YouTube channel. I am your host, Afro Elite. Before we get started, please hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and leave a thumbs up. So, because that really helps the reach and the growth of the channel. I appreciate everybody who's in here. We got people in here already, and we're not even like 1 minute in. Okay, we have our sister Naturally Torah in here. Forgive me if I'm butchering the name a little. I think that's Lamar. B1 to you, and a grape shot. B1 the black. Okay, 7 war with us. B1 to you, brothers. Our sister darling Nikki is in here. B1 to you. Thank you guys for being here with us. If we guys can, before we really get started, because this a lot of people like took little snippets and bits and pieces and stuff like that, but they haven't done a full breakdown of the entire episode that we're going to do tonight. Okay, just had to check my sound. We're doing that tonight. So if everybody can retweet this, put this on their Facebook or whatever the case is, because it's going to be a full breakdown. It's a lot to cover, and I want to get a lot done in a short amount of time. So I'm going to just get started on it. So let me pull this up. We want to everybody in here. Let me pull this up. So this right here, y'all. This is Dr. Phil. Now, before we get started, let me freeze this for a second. Let me freeze that. Before we fully get started, I'm gonna say Dr. Phil is, I guess his show is wrapping up. His show is kind of ending. So I'm assuming he wants to kind of go out with some type of bang or something like that. And he knows that reparations is a hot button topic right now. So this is the reason why he's having this conversation. Now, because Dr. Phil, this is not his first time displaying his thoughts and opinions of anti-Black racism. But the episode starts off, I sped it up like about 5 minutes. The episode starts off with him showing this FBA sister who is a descendant of a slave and a slave master, and her family eventually got the slave property, the inheritance from her side of the slave master. So that's how this starts off. So let me show it to you guys. Let me put this right here.
However, Florence received
hold
40 acres
on,
of land
hold on.
from her.
Before we do that, let me get this out the way. Let's do our due diligence, folks. Let's do our due diligence. Copyright disclaimer. Under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. Okay. Now that that's done, just making sure, we got to make sure, cross our T's and dot our I's, or dot our I's, cross the T's, whatever. Got to make sure our due diligence is done. Now I'm going to show you guys, this is the sister, and she's talking about the land she inherited from her slave owner side of the family.
Her slave owner father, which completely changed the life of her descendants for the better. And that is why Patrice says she believes reparations are absolutely necessary.
I have very strong feelings when it comes to reparations because my family received a form of reparations. My great-great-grandmother, Florence, was born 6 months before the Emancipation Proclamation was signed. She was an enslaved baby. Florence's father was Ephraim Payton Jr. Ephraim Payton was a white slave owner. This is the 1880 census, and it shows my great-great-grandmother Florence listed here under her father's household, and she is a servant in his household, and she was his daughter also. I believe Florence must have had a good relationship with her father, because when it came time for her to Mary, he helped them buy 40 acres of land in Hazelhurst, Mississippi. My family got reparations from my great-great-great-grandfather, Ephraim Peyton Jr. This property has been passed down and it has remained in my family for over 4 generations. With the funds that they amassed with the cotton farm, now the land is currently 116 acres. The property now has 4 houses on it. This is the house after we gutted it. These houses were built by my ancestors. The land is absolutely beautiful. It is full of trails that go through the forest. There are 2 ponds. The land that we've inherited has kept my family together through generations, which is not typical for a lot of Black American families. Without this property, my family wouldn't have had a leg to stand on. They wouldn't have been able to get an education. I'm a 4th generation college-educated Black American descendant of slavery. Because of this land, my family was able to use the funds to start businesses, buy homes. My grandmother, Dr. Geneva Handy Southall, was the first Black woman to get a PhD in piano performance. She was able to get that kind of education because we got reparations. I firmly believe in reparations. When I walk through the land, I wonder, like, hey, one ancestor received reparations in my family. What would have happened if all of my ancestors received reparations? What would have happened if all Black Americans received reparations? Where would we be today?
Appreciate.
Okay. Shout out to that sister. I'm glad she got what she got. I just wanted to show you guys. Can you imagine this happening? She just told you the benefit of having that land, which equals wealth, having that wealth in the family. That's just one instance of the amount of wealth, that generational wealth that can be passed down, and how beneficial that would be. That just gives you like a little preview as to how ahead the dominant society is over Black society. All of these plantations and all of these houses and buildings that they were able to pass down from hundreds of years, all of that stuff that we were prevented by when we had houses, when we had towns, cities, neighborhoods, that stuff was stripped away. They flooded it or burned it down. They ran us out. They took it away with eminent domain. They built a highway over it. All of the stuff that they were able to keep, she was able to keep that. And she's talking about, hey, we were able to use this. We were able to get our education. We were able to build houses. We were able to pretty much be very well off because of something that happened generations and generations ago. So when they tell you, you know, slavery is a thing of the past, the wealth is not a thing of the past. The wealth is still being trickled down. The wealth is still being benefited from. She is just one example, but she's somebody who's currently still benefiting from and that's just the actual land. That's just the land too. You have people who have the land and the money that they use from the slavery, from owning slaves. So that's just, I wanted to show you that because I thought that was very important, just to give you a preview of how beneficial it is for them and how they're still gaining wealth. They are still benefiting off of it. It's not like when slavery ended, okay, everything was even at that point in time. They are still currently to this very, very day benefiting off of that. All right. Now I want to fast forward a little bit because, you know, then he's talking to her and, you know, she's talking about how she feels like everybody deserves, or all Black Americans deserve reparations and all that stuff. So, and that's good. That's good. But I want to fast forward to this part before we get to the white dude, which he had on for some strange reason. I want to get to this.
And later,
money would be paid by the federal government.
The U.S. government doesn't have money. All of their money comes from taxes. So to say you're not going to take it from people today, you're right. You're going to take it from future generations.
In 2019, Evanston, Illinois was the first in the nation to implement reparations, an effort to address harms from slavery to discriminatory housing policies. The money can only go toward mortgages or repairing homes in an effort to increase minority property value. Ramona Burton is one of 16 eligible residents picked in a lottery to receive $25,000 in reparations. Is it enough for reparations?
It's a start, but I don't think it's enough for all minorities have been put through.
For people who don't understand why Black Americans should receive compensation or restitution, what do you say to them?
The United States has harmed the Black community for 403 years, eras of terror and harms. And so repair is necessary.
Okay, here's the thing. What's happening in Evanston is not reparations. In the thing they were talking about, okay, yeah, it's reparations, but you can only use it for housing vouchers. Okay, a housing voucher is not reparations. If it's reparations, they should be able to use it for whatever they choose to use it for. It's not you use it for a housing voucher, which you give to a white-owned bank to get some money to improve your house. That is not reparations. All right. The woman that they picked, like, oh yeah, she was one of the people you picked from a raffle. She had to win a raffle to get reparations. That's not reparations. You shouldn't, if you are a descendant of slaves, you shouldn't have to win any raffle to get reparations. You don't win a raffle to get reparations. So I just wanted to play that real quick to show that's not reparations. Now, in this whole thing, what Dr. Phil is doing is he is trying to throw little like hints that reparations don't just have to be cash. Reparations can be a lot of other things. It can be houses, it can be tax exemptions, it can be cash, I don't want to spoil it, but later on, the implication is it shouldn't be cash. But I want to show you this suspected SW of WS who comes up and who's speaking against reparations.
In 1860, over $3 billion was the value assigned to the physical bodies of enslaved Black Americans to be used as free labor in production. That's billion with a B. Now, some of today's guests say the United States has yet to compensate descendants of enslaved Black Americans for the loss of income that has caused racial wealth disparity for generations. Now, my next guest says Black Americans should not be awarded reparations because the issue is fraught with complications and questions.
My fifth great grandfather, Orson Smith Murray, was an abolitionist from the 1830s and until after the Civil War. He was known to have said that slavery was the struggle of the hour at the time. That was the big issue in our country. Learning about my fifth great grandfather also kept my...
First off, this dude looks like an alt-right racist. This dude, his whole facial features and the facial hair and everything makes him look like a complete straight up alt-right racist. That's the first thing I noticed. I'm like, damn, this man looks like he just left a hillbilly Proud Boys incest orgy. But okay, I just needed to note that.
My interest in social and political issues. When it comes to reparations for American slavery, I think morally it may be a good idea, but practically it's not. Reparations for slavery were a good thing 150 years ago. I think today they're not being used in any sort of good way. It's not well thought out. Who's going to pay for it? It's going to be future taxpayers. If you really wanted to help the Black community, you wouldn't just want to write checks to the Black community. You'd want to solve the problems with absent fatherhood or the broken education system in those communities. I've never seen a plan put down that would work rationally, ethically, or morally.
I'd like to now introduce political writer and consultant Joshua Ferguson and also Alex Gruenfelder, who ran for Los Angeles mayor this past year. While he didn't make it past the primaries, he has now joined Karen Bass's team as the head of her youth engagement department. So welcome to both of you. Appreciate you joining the conversation. Joshua, let me start with you. You say that this is a really complicated issue and that trying to do this now is just fraught with so many problems that it's undoable.
Yes. You have to define terms that people don't want to define. What does it mean to be Black? What do we mean by reparations? What will it be used for? To find out who would qualify would almost put us into a dystopia of classes against each other, trying to divide us up as opposed to trying to unite us with any sort of goal. So I think there are more complications and problems than there are solutions.
Now, I wanted to play it a little bit, right? Now, the first thing he was saying before he actually got on the show, he was all like, you know, we should talk about the absent fatherhood. That's an alt-right talking point. The fact that Black families don't have any fathers, the fathers aren't in the home, whatever the case is. The broken education system, which will be fixed through reparations, which will be fixed through funding, because that's the main reason the education system is broken anyway, is lack of funding, is inadequate funding. So when you have reparations, you will be doing that. I'm going to rewind it back because I want to get to this segment. I want to break it up a little bit. But the thing is, anytime they talk about absent fathers, the Black community has a whole bunch of absent fathers. Your problem is dads. Listen, when you see, we have recently, in the last few years or so, you've been seeing an epidemic of school shooters, of mass shooters all over the place. Nobody is talking about the white dads who are raising these white kids who are going around shooting people and places up. Nobody's talking about that. Now, there was a study done. I did a video about this a while ago. There was a study done by the CDC saying that Black American fathers are collectively the best fathers in America, among all groups of people. So just because which is a situation that will be fixed through reparations, but just because you might not be living with the dad, because they use the thing of the dad is not in the home as the dad being absent. Okay, those are not the same thing. Just because the dad and a mom might be separated and the dad might not live in the home with the kid does not mean that it's an absent dad. That they don't necessarily mean the same thing, but they use that synonymously. Oh, it's absent fatherhood. Well, if it's absent fatherhood, why do we see the Black kids not shooting up schools and stuff like that? You got white dads in the home, and yet the white kids are shooting up schools and planting bombs and stuff like that. So clearly, y'all need to do something when it comes to the fatherhood. They like to point to the fatherhood because they like to say, okay, well, it's your fault. The issue is your fault. Let me tell you something. There are better dads in general. There are better dads who might not live in the same house with the kid than there are dads who live in the very same house with the kid. Just because you're a dad who happens to live with your kid does not make you a good father, does not make you a father that pays attention to their kids, does not make you not an absent dad, does not make you a good dad. They like to point this thing where, okay, well, if you live with the kid, you're a better dad than if you don't live with the kid. That's not the truth. And I'm not saying that the kid shouldn't live with the dad. Of course, the kid should live with the dad, of course. But the talking point of, oh, you guys need to focus on your father issues. Nobody's telling them that when they out buying AK-47s and assault rifles shooting places up. Nobody points at, well, where's the absent fatherhood? Nobody points at the fact that they have an opioid crisis going all around America and talking about, well, with the absent fatherhood, where's the absent fatherhood? Nobody's talking about that. So it's very bad. It's very negative when they talk about the absent fatherhood, because if we compare apples to apples, Black fathers are better than white fathers. So I had to say that. I'm going to take it back. Before I do, let me give a shout out to The $10 super chat from Big Cheese says, great show, Afro Elite. Thank you very much. I appreciate you. Dr. Phil always have people on his show who undermine black people. He thinks he's slick. Exactly. Now, let me ask you a question. Good point. Thank you, Big Cheese. I appreciate that, and I appreciate the super chat. Let me ask you, if this was about the Holocaust, let's just be real. If this was about the Holocaust and reparations for the Holocaust or atonement for the Holocaust, do you think he would have a Nazi? He's going to have a Jewish person sitting on one side, and then he's going to have a Nazi sitting on the other side. Well, y'all think y'all deserve reparations for the Holocaust? But let's hear what the Nazi has to say. He wouldn't dare do that. But he's doing that when it comes to black reparations, slavery reparations. So that way he can play, I'm just being neutral, just hearing both sides out. And then he's going to lean towards the anti-reparation side. So you're right. He thinks he's slick, but he's not slick. Now I'm going to take it back a little bit. And so I can really catch what this hillbilly has to say.
Joshua, let me start with you. You say that this is a really complicated issue and that trying to do this now is just fraught with so many problems that it's undoable.
Yes. You have to define terms that people don't want to define. What does it mean to be black? What do we mean by reparations? What will it be used for? To find out who would qualify would almost put us into a dystopia of classes against each other, trying to divide us up as opposed to trying to unite us with any sort of goals. So I think there are more complications and problems than there are solutions.
Do you say it shouldn't be done because it's too complex to come?
First off, well, what does it mean to be black? What does it mean to what are you going to use the money for? None of your business what we're going to use the money for. None of your business. What does it mean to be black? I don't know. I know what it means to be a foundational Black American. We know what that means. When you talk about notice this is the thing they do. When they talk about black on black crime, they never say, well, we don't know what it means to be black. I might be black. You might be black. Anybody might be black. When they talk about black on black crime, they know who black is. They know what black is. When they talk about fatherless homes, they know what black is. When they talk about gangs and thugs, they know what black is. When they talk about reparations, well, what does it mean to be black? I don't know. Am I black? Are you black? We all black. Everybody's kind of black if you think about it. They always do that. Okay. Let me get to the next super chat, right? From Cult-Like Personality. Imagine a thief complaining to have to give back what they stole. Exactly. High IQ people. This is something that they took, that they have to repay, that they have to get back. All right. So, and thank you very much for your super chat. I appreciate your $5 super chat. This is them complaining. They don't have a right to say no to give it back. So this is why Dr. Phil is wrong for even having him on the platform in the first place. He don't get a voice to say no anyway. All right. Let's continue.
Come up with an answer, or because there has been inequities that are still having an effect. You just don't know how to level the playing field. What's your...
You can't level playing fields. That never works in human history. The big problem is that when you look at a situation that's as long as it is, I mean, as people talk...
You can't level playing fields. That never works in human history. I can name you several times in human history. I just did a video, a live, earlier this week. It was earlier this week where we were talking about reparations and how America has paid reparations to many other people. It's never worked in human history to level the playing field. That's incorrect. These people are just straight up lying.
Talk about it. They talk about the United States' history with slavery. There was slavery in what is now the United States longer than we've been a country. It's like 260 years of slavery under Spanish rule in Florida, 230 years of America. How do you blame America for things that predate America? I mean, we have these problems where you have to define what does it mean to be black. You know, doing my own ancestry, through my father. It's like 2% Congolese DNA. I have no idea where that comes from. I can tell you it's 7 or 8 generations back, and my family was here in the country at that time. So am I black? I mean, it becomes a very complex issue.
It don't become a complex issue. First, it does not become a complex issue. Here's the thing of, well, slavery, there was slavery before America. Okay, well, this land was built, the wealth of this land, which can be calculated, was built by a select group of people. That is not complicated. That is not complicated at all. Okay. When they give reparations to other groups of people, now I did a broadcast earlier this week talking about how much they've done, how much they've given reparations to other groups of people. Anytime they give reparations to other groups of people, they never say, I mean, well, yeah, we're going to give reparations to the Native Americans, but we're not the first people to ever take someone's land. So do we have to give reparations to them? All of these bad faith and disingenuous arguments never happen with other groups of people getting reparations. Let me recognize this super chat, this $15 super chat from Panther Strike. Brother says, Dr. Phil is a fraud. He is. And he doesn't even sound like a real doctor, to be honest. If you listen to enough of his programs, he don't sound that educated. He doesn't sound like an actual real doctor, whatever. He sounds like a mediocre TV host. That's what he sounds like. All right. Now he's saying, Dr. Phil is a fraud, and why and how in the hell did our all caps, our conversation end up on this show? I don't know. I really don't know. Cut the check. Exactly. Cut the check. Thank you very much, brother. I appreciate your super chat. Now let's continue.
Alex, how do you respond to this?
I think that really when we look at reparations as a concept, we look a lot at the most polarizing part of it, and that's this idea of cash payment. And I think that we need to realize as a society that we are not only a country that was built upon slavery and that was built upon systems of institutional racism, but we also need to accept the fact that some communities have then been invested in by the government in the years since more than others. And so I think that when we talk about the racial wealth gap in this country, we're less talking about a cash gap. We're less talking about something that needs to be solved by taking a check from one person and giving it to someone else based on classifications of who is black and who's not, but also looking at ways that we can invest in communities.
Mm-hmm. Have reparations already been made across the last certainly 60, 70 years?
I think that we have begun to make progress in a positive direction, but it is moving too slowly.
Well, a lot of scholars would say that federal and state governments have already spent billions on social programs such as affirmative action, welfare, subsidized housing, health care, employment, development, education, that these programs that have benefited the black community constitute reparations.
Now, I'm going to pause it right there. Look at how, first off, shout out to our sister Q2 Wise for the $4.99 super chat. Thank you very much, my sister. I appreciate you. I really, really do. Thank you very, very much. Now, notice how when the hillbilly was talking, Dr. Phil didn't give him any pushback. It was no questions about, oh, well, don't you notice who he's giving the pushback to. He's giving the pushback to the reparations side. He's trying to sit in the middle as if he's this neutral figure, but yet he's giving pushback only to the reparations side of the conversation. Only to the reparations side, asking, well, the government has spilled billions and billions of dollars on affirmative action. Number one, affirmative action has, and we've talked about this so much, but affirmative action, the number one people who benefit from affirmative action are white women. affirmative action is not at all exclusive to foundational Black Americans. Then he's talking about subsidized housing, Section 8 housing. You can't pass that down to anybody. Section 8 housing, first off, FBA, we're not the only ones who get Section 8 housing. That's number one. All of these government assistance programs, that's what he's talking about, welfare and government assistance programs. That's not exclusively to us, and it doesn't benefit us mainly any damn way. We're not the main beneficiaries of any of that. We're not the main users of any of that anyway. But he's saying, well, don't you think that's kind of a form of reparations? No, because I can't pass down food stamps to the next generation. I can't pass down welfare to the next generation. I can't pass down a Section 8 house to the next generation. I can pass down a house that I own, land that I own, the same way the other sister was talking about. That's something that I can pass down. I can't pass down me getting a job through affirmative action. I can't pass that down. Notice Dr. Phil is trying to be real slick with, okay, I'm going to have both people on. I'm going to have different sides, different parties on, but he's going to give all the pushback to the reparations side. Just peep that.
In the billions and billions of dollars. Does that count for anything?
First of all, there's trillions if we want to talk money
Exactly.
owed. And no, I don't think it has worked so far. And I think that's why we do need to have a conversation about it today.
We're going to hear why a woman says being a mother of 2 Black sons makes her feel a certain way about reparations. We'll be right back. Is there any response that America could give right now to stop
so when the
this?
other
That's the problem. It's too little too late. We've had.
I'd like to now introduce Ashani Imfoko, anti-racist educator and activist, and welcome her into this conversation. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Let me let you add to the conversation based on what you've heard so far.
I think that there cannot be healing without reparations. There cannot be reconciliation without reparations. People talk about unity. We need to come together. We need to focus on what brings us together, not what divides us. Reparations is a part of what can bring us together and bring the healing that we need in our country.
And how do reparations begin to foster that?
I think reparations is, first of all, an acknowledgement. This was wrong, this happened, and not only did it happen, because it wasn't just a one-time thing, it's a lineage, it's a legacy that has continued, it has transformed, it never stopped. And I think that's what people missed. When George Floyd was murdered, everybody kind of woke up like, oh my God, what just happened? And we're like, what do you mean? It's been happening. Where have you been, right? So it's a continuation that started there, but it's continued on. So reparations is an acknowledgement that something needs to happen to begin to repair the damage that has been done.
I had people asking me, is there any response that America could give right now to stop this?
To stop what?
The riots and the demonstrations.
See, I think that's the problem. It's too little too late. We want to respond. We need to be proactive. And reparations is about being proactive. We've had so much time to figure this out, but nothing has ever been done. So what does that tell you? There's a disconnect that's there. And again, education. People don't even know the history. They don't even know what it is. So they can't connect it to what's happening today. And that's the problem. That's why we have to say reparations are something that we need to talk about. And people are like, well, what do you mean? Well, why is that? Because you don't know the history, because you never got the education.
So there's no acceptable response reaction in the short term, but what is it in the long term?
It's everything. It's hitting every area that has been touched by systemic racism. We're talking about housing discrimination. We're talking about financially. We're talking about in healthcare. The maternal mortality rate for Black women is higher than any other group. Everything that's been touched by it in our society, which has basically been embedded into the fabric of our society, it has to be addressed in every single area. It's not just a check. That's just like the beginning.
All right. When it comes to race.
Now, to be totally honest, I thought what you guys was thinking too. I saw the last name and I was like, I don't know, because I don't know where she's from. And you know what I'm saying? Normally when we have people who are not qualified for reparations in the conversation, we get some type of pivot. I'm gonna get to super chats in a minute. I was like, oh, I don't know, but she didn't pivot. You know, I don't know, maybe if she is FBA, if she's not, you know what I'm saying? But as long as she's, you know, talking some sense, then I don't have a problem with her backing up what we have to say. But I really don't know where she's from. Because, you know, you have some FBAs who, you know, back in the day, they changed their last name on some kind of like Pan-African stuff. And then they have like African like last names, but they're actually FBA. So I was thinking, no, it might be one of those. She might be I don't know, but you know what I'm saying. So, but she didn't like tether out, you know what I'm saying. So I was like, okay, that's cool. But let me get to the $5 super chat. He says, let his daughter get prego by Marcus and support cash reparations for FBA. He knows exactly, all caps, exactly what being black is for fam. He's a troll, not dumb. He's trolling, not dumb. Exactly, he is. They all know what black is. The only time they have this confusion of what it means to be black, who is not black, is when we talk about reparations. Now, when we talk about woke, when we talk about cancel culture, when we talk about CRT, they know what black is. When we talk about every single thing else, they know what black is. But the only time they don't know, we have a confusion. There's a conundrum. I'm 2% black from my great ancestor from some other country. The only time they don't know what black is when it comes to this reparation stuff, to hold the reparations up. Thank you very much for your super chat and your comment. Now I want to get to the 1999 super chat from Tell It Like It Is. He says they can't stand the thought of black people having anything. They really can't. Reparations is a moral thing to do, and the fact that this is a moral discussion hasn't been made illustrates the problem of this nation. Exactly. Let me tell you something. Let me really break something down. Thank you very much for your $20 super chat. Let me harp on that. Let me tell you something. Reparations is the moral thing. This is going to, because as foundational Black Americans, we always have, this is going to change. We've always been the heart and the morality of the United States of America from its very inception till right now. This is the moral conversation of America today, really of the world, but really especially of America today. All right. If you do not support us getting reparations, you're not moral. That's the way I see it. It's immoral not to do that. It's immoral to rob somebody, to strip somebody from something, to take something from someone, benefit off of that, and then say, I don't want to give it back. It's too late now. That's immoral. Thievery is immoral. Stealing is immoral. What they're doing, all of this pushback, well, we don't know where it's going to come from. Who's black, who's not, the taxes, that's immoral. All of this is immoral. All of it. All right. Let's continue, because then he brings the other person on. Thank you very much for the super chat, my brother. I see you, brother. Let me get to this, right? I want to fast forward a little bit to the hillbilly.
As opposed to broad stroking it for social points. Politicians.
If we continue to sit back and say all of the challenges that we face, that somehow the control of that is in the hands of white America, this sets up a terrible situation for this nation.
When it comes to reparations, you have to deep dive and get into the details and what actually matters, as opposed to broad stroking it for social points. Politicians often use issues like race to divide people, setting up the ideas like with reparations that black people are the victims and white people are the villains.
In slavery, is that not what happened?
Absolutely labeled a racist if you disagree with certain issues such as reparations.
I fully agree.
I'd like to introduce civil rights activist Bob Woodson. He is the author of Red, White, and Black, Rescuing American History from Revisionists and Race Hustlers, and also Lessons from the Least of These. Bob, thank you so much for being here. Pleased to be here.
A warning, anytime you hear the word race hustler, That's I'm gonna just give you a little breakdown. Race hustler, when people use that as a talking point against somebody, that means bringing up race as if it exists at all. That means talking about exposing racism. That's what that means when they say race hustler. You're a race hustler, okay? So just so y'all know, but pay attention to what this guy says. Exactly. Gotta watch out for these old niggas.
You say you don't support reparations. Why not?
Not everybody suffered equally. I mean, when you go into slavery, it's much more complex than all white people were the oppressors and black people were the victims. If you dissect it, you will find there were about 3,700 free blacks who owned 12,000 slaves, black slaves. The question is, do the descendants of those free blacks who owned black slaves, do they pay? Blacks really...
Let me get to that. And we're going to do a lot. I was trying not to do a lot of stopping and going back and forth, because that's what I'm going to do with this guy. First off, he said 3,700 free blacks owned slaves. I don't know where I tried to do some research and find where he got that exact number from. All of the numbers that I've seen, now there were some black people who were free and who did have slaves. The number that he's talking about, I have no idea where he's getting that from. I literally do not have any idea. On one hand, they argue that very, very, very few white people own slaves. And then on this hand, thousands, almost 4,000 black people own slaves. Okay. And then most of the time, now I don't know, he didn't cite a source. You don't know where he just got that number from. I don't know where. I tried to look that up to see if that's a credible source. I have no idea where he got that huge number from. I've never heard of anything like that before. But okay, one of the things that black people, that when black people did get their freedom and did own first, and to be honest, that has nothing to do with reparations. But the thing is that when they got their freedom, a lot of black people, and they were buying slaves, they were pretty much buying their family members back. That's a large, that's the conversation they don't like to have. A lot of them, when they were free and they would buy property they would buy slaves, a lot of them were buying the slaves and were freeing the slaves. That's why you don't hear a whole bunch of stories of black overseers catching slaves and hanging slaves and whipping slaves. You don't see that happening. You don't see a whole lot of that happening because the few black people who did do that were not on that type of energy, did not have that type of mentality to do that. And even if that was, right, that has nothing to do with the fact that the wealth of the country was built off of slave labor. The wealth of the country was built off of slave labor. So you're going to have to give that up anyway. Saying it's a black problem versus, it's not even a black versus white problem. It's an America versus black problem. That's what it is. The country of America. We're not just talking about individual slave owners. That's where we kind of get mixed up in the game. When you talk about the country of America, you don't have any wiggle room. That's why they like to individualize the talking point, saying that, well, this slave owner, he wasn't that bad. He didn't make that much money. That slave owner made a lot of money, but that slave owner was black. It don't matter. America benefited from all of it. So America's going to have to pay for all of it. That's what it is. All right. Now, let's continue.
Really benefited more the first 100 years after slavery. We have enough blacks who own 12,000 slaves, black slaves. The question is, do the descendants of those free blacks who owned black slaves, do they pay? Blacks really benefited more the first 100 years after slavery we have in the last 50 years.
And why is that, sir? He doesn't go into why that is. He just says, oh yeah, blacks benefited more. Okay.
I was born in 1937 during the Depression. Everyone in my small, low-income Black community, 98% of the households had a man and a woman raising children. Elderly people could walk safely in that community without fear of being assaulted by their grandchildren. Never heard a gunfire during that time. Never heard of a child being shot to death in the crib. But there are 50 children today who have been shot and killed in our cities.
Oh, that's, I mean, yeah, you never had to worry about your grandkid. So first off, most FBA don't have to worry about their grandchildren, their direct grandchildren beating them up. Most Black Americans aren't out here assaulting our grandparents. Now when you talk about the dominant society, you know what I'm saying? You take Connor's Xbox away, and I don't know, he might do something to the family, but that's not something you really have to worry about when it comes to Black society. But what I find very interesting is, oh, we didn't have to worry about being assaulted by our grandchildren. No, what they had to worry about is being lynched by the Klan. They had to worry about being hung by the Ku Klux Klan. They had to worry about somebody breaking in their house and dragging them out in the middle of the night. He's talking about how, oh, in the older people, we had to look out for the grandchildren. There was a lot of, you want to talk about old niggas? You want to talk about how cowardly a lot of the old niggas were? Do you know Emmett Till was at his grandparents' house when the two white men who went and kidnapped him, they just knocked on the door and said, hand over the boy, and they handed over Emmett Till? Do you understand that? So when they talking about, oh, well, our grandchildren, our youth are so toxic. No, it's the older people who are cowardly. It's the older people who are toxic. It's the older people who allowed this to go on. Okay, it's the older people. Do you know today, if you knock on the door of any Black American today and say, hey, give me your kid, give me your grandkid, you know you have to kill everybody in that damn house before the kid had to leave. Like, oh, I'm sorry, Emmett, you have to go. I got to look after myself. They handed over Emmett Till. And Emmett Till was lynched, which really sparked the civil rights. Well, even though it was building up before that, that really sparked the civil rights movement because of that. Now he's sitting up there talking about, and it was born before that. Emmett Till, that happened in the 1950s. So he would have been like 20 something years old. Now, I'm not saying he was a part of that situation, but I'm talking about how he's like, oh yeah, and look how great we were. And it's our grandchildren. It's our grandchildren. If they would have looked out for their grandchildren, he is one of the old niggas who, if he would have looked out for his grandchildren, him and his ilk of people, if they would have looked out for their grandchildren, maybe their grandchildren wouldn't be beating them in the ass. Maybe their grandchildren are beating their ass because they need their ass beat. And I'm not promoting violence at all. I'm just saying there's a lot of old niggas who probably do need their ass beat. But let's continue.
If you're talking about remedies, we've got to look beyond saying that every solution has to have a winner and a loser, that Blacks can only benefit if whites lose.
Oh, so, okay, so when the Black people, when the dominant society enslaved Black people, forced them to build a country, got all of the wealth from the free labor and torture and torment of their enslaved people, when they got all of that stuff, white people won. White people were able to get generational wealth and pass that down. So white people are still winning. The second you say to give the money back, the second you say we need to do something to make up for what happened, oh, well, we don't want white people to lose. Doesn't have to be a winner and a loser. There's already a winner and a loser. It's just the people who are on the losing side are starting to push the needle forward now. So it's not a problem when white people win like they have been and like they are now. White people are winning now. White people have been winning for hundreds of years. That's not a problem. But to say to give the money back, oh, well, you know, white people gonna lose. So Black, notice what they think. Black success equals white failure. That's why they don't want to give reparations.
we have to be defined more than just victims of oppression. When whites were at their worst, blacks were at their best. When we were denied access to hotels, we built our own. We have to communicate to our people the history of...
He's talking about when we were denied access to hotels, we built our own. And we did. Why were we denied access to hotels, though? He's making it seem like that's not a problem.
Of how they achieved in the face of oppression. But if we continue to sit back and say all of the challenges that we face in out of wedlock births of violence, that somehow the control of that is in the hands of white America. And therefore, until white people change, there's nothing that we can do. This sets up a terrible situation for this nation. The big crisis facing America is not racial. It is the moral and spiritual freefall that is consuming our children. The highest death rate among black families is homicide.
That's incorrect. I knew it was incorrect the first time I heard it, but I had to verify that's incorrect. That's not the first or second, but okay.
Among Silicon Valley, the highest level of suicide, 6 times the national average. In Appalachia, there are prescription drugs. And so if we are to address this crisis that is causing our children to lack a sense of personal responsibility or value for their own life, they will take their own life or take someone else's. So in order to address that, we must come together and look beyond race and realize America is drowning because it's in a moral and spiritual freefall. None of us should be defined by the worst of what we were in the past, but we should be defined by what we want to become in the future. And that people are motivated to change when you give them a vision of victories that are possible, not constantly reminding them of injuries to be avoided.
I think.
Now, before the sister goes in, let me give a shout out to the our auntie, for the $5 super chat. Say, good evening, Afro Lee. Good evening, auntie. How you doing? See the conversation, and I'm here for it. Much love and much respect. Much love and respect, auntie. Thank you very much for stopping by. Now, here's the thing. He's talking about the issue is a moral issue. The issue is a moral issue. The moral issue is racism. The moral issue is white supremacy. That is the moral issue. He's saying this, oh, our kids are born out of wedlock, and that's why they beating up their grandparents, and they don't have any respect for themselves, and gun violence and black on black crime and all this stuff. Well, the white kids, they're not born out of wedlock, and yet you see them shooting up mass schools and stuff like that. The white kids who are not born out of wedlock happen to be the serial killers. Jeffrey Epstein was not born out of wedlock. Okay, his parents were married, and he is one of the most notorious serial killers in American history. Ted Bundy, he was not born out of wedlock, and he's one of the most notorious serial killers in American history. I can go on and talk about how all these sick white men who are not born out of wedlock happen to be some of the most Jeffrey Dahmer. That's what I meant. Jeffrey Dahmer. Thank you, Iron Will. But Jeffrey Epstein too. Hell, Jeffrey Epstein had a whole damn pedo island. He's not born out of wedlock. We can talk about all of the, it's the fatherless homes, it's the born out of wedlock. Okay, that's a problem. But notice how that never, ever, ever is a conversation when you're talking about the issues among white society. This is why I don't entertain, we got to have stricter gun control. Because when they talk about black issues, it's, why don't you guys raise your kids better? You guys need to raise your kids better. The dads need to be in the homes. That's your problem. The moms need to stop being sluts. That's your problem. Now, when it comes to the white kids shooting up the place, then it's, you know what? Why did the white kid have access to a gun? That's the problem. If we just have stricter gun laws, the problem isn't the white kid or the dad or the mom. The problem is the gun. I don't entertain those conversations because all of the moral, cultural conversations, the wagging the finger, the blaming the culture, that only gets done when it comes to us. That's never done when it comes to them. So that's why I don't entertain that shit at all. Now, I'm going to continue. I'm going to let the other guy go ahead.
It's not either or. I think it's and. I think we can do both. We cannot ignore the reality of systemic racism and how it's affected the Black community. You can't just be like, we need to just focus on our own issues. The violence is happening in the Black community. It's the Black people's fault, and we need to focus on that. Actually, it's a lot of things. So we can't just separate them and be like, just focus on yourselves. Don't worry about racism. It's finding us. It finds us wherever we go. It's not our fault, right? So what you're saying is we need to focus our issues on ourselves and not wait for this. No, we can do both. We can get reparations and we can work on issues within our community as we have always been doing. But we need to start removing the barriers that are there that shouldn't be there.
I like her. I don't know where she's from. I was a little worried when she first popped up. When I saw the name, like, oh no, I hope she's not a tether. But hey, I like what she had to say. She's been on it.
Be there in the first place.
Let me just say the problem.
Now look at how he completely deflects from this. Y'all pay attention. Look at how he completely deflects from this.
With generalizing about any group and then trying to apply remedies to that group.
First off, he says the problem when it comes to generalizing any group, he just spent his whole first segment, generalizing Black society, generalizing the youth, saying that we're immoral, saying that we're born out of wedlock, saying he just spent his whole thing generalizing us. Now when she's talking about, okay, well, we need to go back, we can handle both issues at the same time. Well, the problem with generalization,
it always benefits those at the top. Just like in the middle of the Me Too movement. Oh, women, you cannot generalize about Blacks, women, or anybody. And if you do, let's just take women. So what is it? Harvey Weinstein and Bill Cosby get arrested. Right in the middle of the Me Too movement, there was a 2-hour documentary about women being raped in our prisons. For 2 hours, every one of the victims was a Black woman. Every one of the villains was a Black guard and a Black officer. It did not generate any debate or discussion because it did not fit the racial narrative. In other words, the only time that we can become upset is when evil wears a white face.
I disagree.
Thank you. Now, here's the crazy part about that. Black people, and we've done so many videos, studies, conversations. Black people, specifically Black men, are the most incarcerated demographic of people in America. And we are the most acquitted people in America. That means that we are the #1 people who are falsely incarcerated. So when they talk about, oh, the only time you can talk about consequences is when it's a white face, that is statistically and historically incorrect. Okay, you can talk to the Central Park 5 if you want to have that conversation. And the crazy thing is that he just talked about Bill Cosby. He was like, yeah, Bill Cosby and Harvey Weinstein, they're the face of Me Too, but we're not talking about the other Black men. Bill Cosby is a Black man who they made the face of Me Too. They didn't make Harvey Weinstein the face of Me Too. That was us pointing that out about, hey, y'all trying to kind of let Harvey Weinstein slide. I've said this before and I will say it again. The dominant society tried to let Harvey Weinstein slide. They were going to let him go. It was us who kept bringing up Harvey Weinstein. It was us who kept saying, hey, no, y'all kind of, if y'all going to do that with Bill Cosby, if y'all going to do that with R. Kelly, y'all better get Harvey Weinstein too. And y'all better get Jeffrey Epstein. And that kind of forced their hand to be all like, oh, okay, because we look kind of racist, only talking about Bill Cosby. We got to get you, Harvey. My bad. I'm sorry. Yet they still didn't drag Harvey Weinstein the way they did Bill Cosby. And there was more substantial evidence that Harvey Weinstein did something than what Bill Cosby did. So what he's talking about, oh, we can only talk about bad when it's a white face. First off, that ain't got nothing to do with reparations at all. That has absolutely nothing to do with reparations. #1. And #2, that's incorrect. Jonathan Majors is damn near going to be replaced as King the Conqueror because of an allegation that the white woman retracted. Okay? And Dana White, who's on video beating his wife up, ain't nothing happened to him so far.
To take a break here, if a reparations proposal is passed, How do we come up with a plan that makes sense? We're going to hear from someone who has a real proposal.
Now let me fast forward a little bit.
Says it just might happen. We'll hear about it.
Okay.
And
Then
add
you
that
bring
to the
Sandy
dialogue
Garrity
we come up.
on.
Reparations and how they should be handled. So what are the high points of your proposed plan?
The first condition is that reparations should be paid to Black Americans whose ancestors were enslaved in the United States. The second is how much should be paid. And the amount should be dictated by the disparity in wealth between Black and white Americans, which at the current moment amounts to in excess of $840,000 per household.
What is the range that you would propose?
No, that's way too low. $840,000 per household? No. No. Nope. That's way too low.
Supposed to pay.
So my objective, and the objective that Kirsten and I describe in our book, is to eliminate the racial wealth gap in the United States. And this would require an expenditure of $14 trillion, which would be distributed.
14 trillion is too low. That's too low. That's way too low.
Evenly across the 40 million Black American descendants of U.S. slavery. That would be approximately $350,000 per person.
That's too low. That is way too low.
And where would that money come from?
Did you see Dr. Phil's face, his facial expressions as he's talking? He looks like bothered by it. Look at his facial expressions. Pay attention. Look at how bothered Dr. Phil is looking with that.
Which would be distributed evenly across the 40 million Black American descendants of U.S. slavery. That would be approximately $350,000 per person.
And where would that money?
Look at that. He looks like this Negro. Look at this damn. He looks like that's a stupid ass thing to say. That's what he's looking. If you pay attention to his facial expressions, how he's looking down, his head is down, and he's looking up like, oh my God, that's an idiotic thing to say. That's dumb as hell. He looks very bothered by that. And where would that money come from?
Come from? Where would that money come from?
Money would be paid by the federal government, and it would be paid by the federal government in the same way in which the federal government has met the expenses that were paid out for the purposes of trying to deal with the Great Recession, and also most recently with the economic downturn associated with the Great Pandemic.
First of all, the U.S. government doesn't have money.
Hold on. Let me not pause it. Let me let this hillbilly, this incest hillbilly, go ahead. Now, he's talking about the money would come from the U.S. government.
Economic downturn associated with the Great Pandemic.
First of all, the U.S. government doesn't have money. All of their money comes from taxes. So to say you're not going to take it from people today, you're right. You're going to take it from future generations. That's what's going to happen.
I cannot think of any.
Now, he says the first off, okay. The U.S. government does have money. The U.S. government are the people who subsidize a whole bunch. The U.S. government has money. The government has money. That's the argument that they like to make when they talk about anti-reparation. The anti-reparationists use this. The U.S. government, they don't really have money. They get all the money from the taxes. If they didn't have money, they wouldn't have been able to give out any settlements. They wouldn't be able to give out any They wouldn't be able to give out the stimulus checks. Obama in 2008, he wouldn't have been able to bail out the banks that was the cause of the housing crisis. Okay, the U.S. government does have money, and if it got to come out of taxes, I mean, y'all do live here. Exactly. Ukraine. That's another one. The U.S. government doesn't have money, yet the U.S. government spends trillions altogether, trillions of dollars on the military every year. The U.S. government spends hella money overseas. We're going to stop the U.S. government. It's taxes. It all comes from taxes. It all comes from my taxes. I don't want my taxes to go up. That's not going to happen, dude.
Any group of people who have been made wealthy by just transferring money to them.
He says, I don't know any group of people who've been wealthy by transferring money to them. That's what inheritance is. The transfer of things. You don't know anybody who's been gotten wealthy by transferring things to them. That's exactly by definition what an inheritance is. Somebody has something and they transfer it to somebody else. That's what settlements are. That's how people get money. So this is just disingenuous talking points and disingenuous arguments right here.
There has never been a point in United States history where black and white incomes were equivalent. But I'm not talking about income anyway. I'm talking about the wealth disparity.
Right.
There is a substantial history of the United States government providing financial assets to white citizens when it did not provide similar assets to black citizens. Let's go back to the period in which there was a promise made of 40-acre land grants to black Americans. At the same time, when that promise was not fulfilled, the US government gave 1.5 million white families in the United States 160-acre land grants in the Western Territories under the Homestead Act of 1860. That was a transfer that has resulted in a situation in which 45 million living white Americans are continuing to be beneficiaries of those land patents.
Okay, let me jump in for a second here, because
now he didn't cut nobody else off. He's cutting him off.
Names on the wall everywhere. You're given a history lesson which is indisputable, Professor. Those are the facts. But I can tell you from a psychological perspective that if you take $350,000 or $840,000 and you write a check to any group of people,
just pay attention. Hold on. Let me circle this back. I want y'all to really pay attention to what Dr. Phil, he's been attempting to play neutral the whole time, but let's pay very, very attention to what he has to say. Very close attention.
A history lesson which is indisputable, Professor. Those are the facts. But I can tell you from a psychological perspective that if you take $150,000 or $840,000 and you write a check to any group of people, black, white, and say, there you go, best of luck, and you come back in 6 months, they're going to be broke. So whatever reparations are done, that would be an absolute disaster as opposed to guidance and help in creating generational wealth as opposed to income.
Right.
Sister, no, come on now. Okay, look, first off, he's lying. Dr. Phil is a racist liar. That he's a damn liar. He was like, you give that money to any group of people, 6 months, they're going to be broke. No, that's not true. That's not correct at all. There's a lot of people who do take money and who do start businesses, who do use that to fuel their businesses, who start careers off of that money. He's just lying. He's pretty much saying, oh, you too dumb. Black people are too dumb to have money. He didn't say that when it comes to Ukraine. He wouldn't say that if we were Jewish. He wouldn't say that if we were Hispanic. He wouldn't say that if we were Asians. When Asians got their reparations, that was no problem for them to get their reparations. Oh, what they need is counseling and guidance. They didn't get that. When the Alaskans got their reparations, they didn't get counseling and guidance. When the Native Americans got their reparations, they were getting the bag. They got the bag. Now it's time for us to get reparations. Well, you know, it wouldn't really work. They'd all go broke anyway. What they need, pay attention to what he says. Oh, just, you know, counseling and guidership and, you know, generational wealth. Well, how are you going to get the generational wealth? That's talking. He's talking about what we need to have is conversations where white people talk to black people. That's what Dr. Phil is having. Now, Dr. Phil tried his best, tried his damnedest to play neutral, but at a certain point in time, he was all like, I got to do this. He doesn't agree with reparations. That's why he was like, where would that money come from? Okay. And then when Darity was talking about, okay, this is where the money would come from. Oh, y'all go broke anyway.
That would be an absolute disaster.
That would be an absolute disaster. That's never, ever, ever been an absolute disaster with any other group of people. I did a whole broadcast and I didn't even talk about every other group of people, but every other group of people who've gotten reparations, that was not an entire disaster. Their people getting reparations was not a disaster. And let me tell you something. Let me pause this real quick. If it was a disaster, if us getting reparations, if every single FBA person gets reparations and we all 100% of us, we all blow the money. We just by nonsense blow it, just blow it. In 6 months we have it, and in 6 months it's completely gone. That is our right. We have a right to this. We need to stop having the conversation and having it be framed as reparations is, okay, this is what you guys need to get better. We're going to use it to build the community. But damn it, if we don't want to, we don't have to. It's a debt that is owed to us. End of conversation. Okay? They don't get to, well, you know what? We're going to police what would be better for black people. You don't get to decide what would be better for black people. Okay? That if you guys have a job, imagine if somebody, your check is supposed to come Friday and they all like, well, it would have hit your account, but the thing is I don't know what you would do with it. So we're going to have a class. I'm going to tell you what you do with your money, and then I'm going to give it to you. That's not how this works. If every single foundational black American in this country was a damn billionaire, they would still owe reparations. Reparations is not something that you owe because we don't have money. Reparations would be something that you owe no matter what. They used that argument, oh, well, what about LeBron James? What LeBron James, he gets reparations too. It don't matter how much money LeBron James has. It doesn't matter how much money I have. The poorest of the poor, if you're a descendant, you get reparations. The richest of the rich, if you're a descendant, you get reparations. However they choose to spend the money, that is up to them. You don't get to say, oh, they would be broke. Well, damn it, they would let them go broke then. Damn it, that's on them. That's not your place to say, I'm not going to give you what you owe because I feel that you're not going to spend the money the way I want you to spend the money. They don't have that right. This is why these type of conversations are messed up in the first place, is because you shouldn't have an opposition in this whole conversation. From what I know, assuming that the dark-skinned sister is FBA, assuming that I know that, there's only 3 people in this conversation. That's Darity, the first sister, and then the other sister. Only 3 people can be having this conversation because only 3 people are qualified to get reparations in the first damn place. Oh wait, no, the other coon guy, I guess he would get reparations. He say you don't want it, he can pass it off, but I guess he would still qualify for reparations, I guess. But let's continue, because Dr. Phil stands on this. He doesn't just say, oh no, he stands on it. Come on, computer. My computer freezing up. Come on now.
Says that that there's going to be mismanagement of funds when we're talking about the distribution of reparations payments to other communities.
I just said it. I just said you give that money to anybody, they're going to mismanage it. They're going to blow it. Look at the fraud that just occurred with all of the money that was given in support of COVID. Okay, now,
but the thing is that there's a lot of people who use the money. Yeah, it was a lot of fraud. There was a lot of people who used the money and did beneficial things with the money. There's been multiple studies done to say that a lot of the people used their stimulus checks, which wasn't a lot of money, to be honest. there was a couple people, to be honest, if y'all know, I didn't get my last 2 stimulus checks. Or was it the last one? I know there was a stimulus check I didn't get. Everybody didn't even get all their stimulus checks. Okay. But there were people who used their stimulus checks to help them catch up on bills, to help them start businesses. Like, yeah, all this pocket watching. Y'all don't have the right to do that.
I have to take a break for a second, and we'll be right back, and I'll start with you, and I want to hear from the audience. I know you guys are wiggling in your chairs, so I'm going to let you guys speak when we come back. We'll be right back.
Then he gets to the audience. I thought he was going to go to the black guy again. Then he gets to the audience.
Well, we're back, and we're talking about whether reparations make sense or whether they don't. Who's got a comment? Yes, over here.
I think today I've heard some very disheartening and dangerous statements. I think we have to be careful in what traumas happen to our family, not to let them affect our worldview, right? Because my brother-in-law was killed by the police, which was founded to help capture enslaved people or newly freed people. So we have to make sure we have all the facts on what's going on. Or to say that we don't still feel the effects of what happened 150 years ago. I don't know Patrice, but I know my great-grandmother was a slave. And I know that the reason I feel a sort of way when I get pulled over is because of what happened to the newly freed people. And I know that reparations is equal to accountability, which our country fails to do, right? Right now, we're talking about modern day book burning by whitewashing history. We don't want to teach people that look like me what really happened to our ancestors. And I think that's equally dangerous. And I think that it's incumbent upon all of us to know what America came from, right? There's a reason we don't do the third stanza of the Star-Spangled Banner, because it references something we don't want to take accountability from, where reparations starts that conversation. Maybe it's not a payment, maybe it's education, maybe it's taxes, but first on it's owning our history, which we don't want to do.
Yeah. Okay.
Respect to the brother, salute to the brother. I agree with everything he said up until he was talking about maybe it's not a check, maybe it's education, maybe it's taxes. No, brother, it's a check. Besides that, he did a good job. I like what he had to say, because America does not take accountability. I mean, he had it all the way up to the touchdown line. He had it, and then he fumbled the ball a little bit. But, I ain't going to beat up on him too hard.
Hey, who else has a comment? Over here?
If it's about discrimination as well, where do other races fall into all this, such as the Hispanic community or the Asian community? Do they get, monetary value as well? Or is it more focused on just, one community?
So anytime we talk about...
Now, you saw that. He had a Hispanic person say, if it's about discrimination, what about us? And here comes the sister coming to check him again.
Black Americans and reparations, or what's happening today and how it connects to chattel slavery, everybody suddenly wants to talk about everything else. Let's talk about classism. And there is an intersection between classism and sexism. But we're not talking about that right now. Now you want to say, well, what about everybody else? This is what happens. This is why nothing has been done all this time, because we can't stay focused on one issue at a time. We're talking about something very specific that we want to address that has not been addressed. So we need to face that first. Once we do that, or while that's happening, we can be addressing other things too. But we can't keep gaslighting and being like, well, people who are poor, they're dealing with issues too. People who are from the Asian community are dealing with issues too. No one said that they weren't, but we're trying to deal with one issue and get solutions for that first, because it should have happened a long time ago and it still hasn't happened. So it's time to pay up.
Couldn't agree more. And then he ends it. The broadcast pretty much almost done anyway. So yeah, he ends it at that point. All right. So to the last dude who says something, if this is not reparations for discrimination. This is not reparations for racism. This is reparations for slavery. This is slavery reparation. Okay. Slavery was an era in American history that built wealth. This is not everybody who had a bad life reparations. Okay. This is about a very specific thing that America needs to atone for. This is not about nothing else. So when he's sitting up there talking about, well, what about the Hispanics? What about the Asians? You mean the ones who left their country and came over here? Y'all think y'all get some reparations? I left my home to come somewhere where I thought was better, and that's the only reason anybody leaves their country, to go to some place that they think is better. Nobody leaves their country to go to some place they think is worse than their own country. The only time anybody would leave their own country is if they left it thinking that the other country was way better. So they left to a better country, a country we built, by the way. They left to a better country, and they talk about, hey, well, where's my check? Your check is the fact that you get to be here. That's your reparations. All of these other groups of people, y'all talk about discrimination, y'all talk about hardships, y'all talk about how bad y'all treated. Your reparations is, you're standing on it right now. The reparations is the house, the roof over your head. The reparations is when you turn on the sink, water comes out of that shit. That's your reparations, okay? Besides that, y'all don't have no other claim to reparations. We're the only group of people who have any claim to reparations. And as the sister was talking about, all of this is disingenuous arguments. Anytime we talk about reparations, they be like, well, what about, is all this whataboutism? What about this? What about that? What about this? What about that? What about that? What about that? When you talk about other groups of people's problems, when we were talking a couple years ago, when we were talking about the Stop Asian Hate, notice how none of the Hispanics came up talking about, well, stop Hispanic hate. What about Hispanic hate? Nobody said that. No white person said, well, stop white hate. What about white hate? What about poor people hate? What about women hate? What about LGBT hate? What about all this other hate? When other groups of people have problems, and everybody knows the Stop Asian Hate, that wasn't a real problem. But when other groups of people have problems, they get to be the focus of their problems. Nobody comes around gaslighting, well, what about me? What about me and him and her? Nobody does that to other groups of people. Only when it comes to black people getting something that nobody else can get, does it become a thing. Well, I was oppressed too. What about me? Pick me. And that's the only time that we have those types of conversations. All right. America did something to us worse. And this is why I say when people talk about oppression Olympics, I'll be playing them games. I don't know about everybody else. They don't want to play the oppression Olympics. Hispanics ain't been through half of what we have been through. So if we was to dally up reparations and pay it down the line, y'all way in the back. Y'all don't need to have this conversation. This conversation is for the first class people getting reparations. Okay. Y'all in the back, y'all up in, no, y'all in the corner somewhere. Y'all don't need to worry about that. Y'all identify with white half the time any damn way. They're not getting no damn reparations. Y'all go talk to the cartel about your reparations. Imagine leaving your country to go to someplace else, talk about, well, where's my reparations too? I'll be damned. And that's one thing we don't do. We never go anywhere else talking about, well, they shouldn't get it if we can't get it. They never do that. Dr. Phil, and this is stage, somebody said that in the chat room. Dr. Phil knew what he was doing. Dr. Phil, you think it's a coincidence that you gave the black dude thing and then you gave the Hispanic guy one too? To talk about, well, what about us? And what about the Asians? What about them? What about them? What about them? If they were the slaves who built the country, they would get it, but they weren't. So that's it. End the conversation. Be damned. Get your reparations from Mexico, from Mexico. Talking about, well, what about mine? What about it? You ain't getting none. That's it. End of story. And he's sitting up there upset. That's why we have to frame the conversation. This is not reparations for racism. This is not reparations for discrimination. This is not reparations for anything else but slavery. This is specific reparations for slavery. I'm going to tell you personally, I don't even really entertain like the reparations for like Jim Crow and all of that stuff yet. The way I see it, and I had an interview with Revolt during the rally for reparations last year in November. The way I see it, our reparations check is going to come in like waves, in stages. We're at the first stage of reparations where we're talking about slavery. When we get our reparations for slavery, that sets the foundation up perfectly for every other thing. But if we want to say, okay, we're going to give reparations for slavery and Jim Crow and redlining and police, if we try to bunch that all together, then it kind of muddies the waters a little bit. That's why I am very, very specific about slavery reparations. Can your ancestry be traced back to slavery? Was your ancestor a slave? No, then you don't get it. This isn't no discrimination. This isn't I wasn't allowed to eat at that restaurant too reparations. This wasn't I had to sit in the back of the bus reparations too. This isn't that. This is slavery reparations. Okay. Now, when we get that, then the checks are going to start coming in. The checks are going to start coming in for everything else. But as of right now, and it's very important that we set this first wave up right, because if we don't do it right, we can't go back and redo it. So that's why we have to set this up right. This Hispanics, y'all not even a part of this conversation. Dr. Phil allowed this racist hillbilly to come up, okay, and then this coon to come up, and then he's giving pushback to, oh, well, where would the money come from? Where would the money come from? Oh, the money comes from the federal government. Well, any group of people, no, they would just blow the money. What you need to do is you need to have conversations. That's white people talking to black people about being better. That's what it is. Okay? Dr. Phil is a damn racist. An old, wrinkled up, dumb racist. He doesn't... Go to his content. Look at all he's been on the Dr. Phil show for years. He don't really say nothing smart like that. He doesn't say anything that has you think like, damn, Dr. Phil is an intelligent. Like, give me one clip of Dr. Phil and people being all like, wow, he's so deep. He's so articulate. He's so nobody looks at Dr. Phil like that. Nobody has Dr. Phil. That's why Dr. Phil is not featured in anything else but his own damn show. Nobody has Dr. Phil in no real conversation. Nobody takes Dr. Phil serious. Dr. Phil he's a damn TV host. That's really what he is. He's like a more sophisticated Murray. That's really what he is. He just has a whole bunch of psychologically damaged people to sit down and have conversations with each other. That's all he is. He's just a bald, heftier Maury. That's really what he is, with a Mario mustache. He says, thank you very much for the 1999 super chat, my brother. He Cyberdyne. He says, thanks as always. Doing some straightening. Absolutely. B1, thank you very much. Absolutely. Yeah, and thanks to Okra. Okra's the one who put him on. Dr. Phil. Yeah, and he's the one who gave that the Dr. Oz dude who turns out to be a racist. Dr. Phil's always giving platforms to kind of suspected racist people. Remember that Catch Me Outside girl? And how she blew up because of Dr. Phil? And then she's been saying some racist stuff. Who wants to be black? I don't know. I don't want to be black. But yet she's trying to be black. Yeah, Dr. Phil has a very suspect background with him. Dr. Phil's not that smart. He's not a smart... I don't know who was giving out the doctorates at that time. Dr. Phil's not a smart dude. Nobody... Dr. Phil, let me hold on as we doing this. How long has the Dr. Phil show been on? How long has the Dr. Phil show? That came out like the early 2000s, right? Let me find out. Let me find this out, because I'm curious now. The Dr. Phil talk show. How long has that been out? It's been out since 2002. It's on its 21st season. It's been out since 2002. Let me show you guys just for proof, so y'all know I'm not lying. Let me show you guys. This show has been out since 2002. Okay, he's on his 21st season. Okay, 103 episodes. And not nobody can tell me how intelligent this dude is. Dr. Phil is stupid. He is a damn idiot. Nobody. He's had his show, okay, for over 2 decades. For over 2 decades, Dr. Phil has had his show. And it's not like he had a show, then it was canceled, then it got back. But he's had his show for over 2 decades, and he's a doctor, and nobody cites him. He's one of the doctors nobody cites. Nobody cites this doctor. People cite Oprah Winfrey, who's not a doctor, more than Dr. Phil. People cite Murray more than Dr. Phil. You get more articulation from other shows that has nothing, and they're not doctors. Dr. Phil is a damn idiot. I don't know how he got his damn doctorate. I don't know if that was that hereditary. Did he get that passed down to him? Somebody saying you petty as hell. Dr. Pepper over Dr. Phil. Somebody else said Dr. Dre over Dr. Phil. I agree. It's man, Dr. Octopus. Dr. Octopus is probably smarter than him. People cite way smarter people than Dr. Phil's not that smart. He's not that smart. You can't pull up one clip of somebody saying, damn, Dr. Phil really knew what he was talking about. He's not a smart dude. I don't know where he got it. Dr. Strange. I think Dr. Strange is probably smarter than Dr. Phil. You're talking about Dr. Strange, Dr. Richards, Dr. Bruce Banner, all of those doctors from the MCU. Come on now. Batman is smart. In the Batman movies, he's more articulate. Damn it, Alfred is more smarter than Dr. Phil. Dr. Evil. Like, come on, dude. Now, to be honest with you, you want to talk about Dr. Evil. If we can get petty for a little bit, does this picture right here, I'm gonna get a little petty. But does this picture right here not look like somebody who, does this not look like the stereotype of a villain? This part, look at this, look at this. Does this not look like a villain to you guys? I don't know. Maybe I'm being a little bit too petty. Does this look like somebody who you go in the room? You know how the villains do? You know how the villains do where they turn around when the hero goes in the room and the villain, hold on, I'm gonna show you guys. The villain's like this, and the villain has a cat, and he's like, oh, and then he turns around all slow, petting the cat and doing all like that. Is it me? Does he not look like that type of person? Does he not look like he has a pet cat? Does he not look like he has a pet cat with a robot arm? Does it not look like you're gonna walk in his bedroom and he's just gonna be staring out the window with his hands behind his back? Y'all know the Sonic cartoon? Hold on, let me pull this up. Because I was wondering, who does this guy look like? He looks like a cartoon I used to watch as a kid. Do y'all know the Mr. Eggman? Hold on, what's his name? Is his name Mr. Eggman cartoon? Hold on, let me see. I think it is hold on, let me see. Mr. Eggman from, does he not look like this person? I'm gonna show you to you guys. Does Dr. Phil, hold on, let me get a good picture. A real good picture right here. Does Dr. Phil pay very close attention to how he looks, right? Y'all can't tell me that Dr. Phil does not look. I'm petty as hell for this. Y'all can't tell me Dr. Phil don't look like this. Y'all can't tell me this don't look like Dr. Phil. This is what Dr. Phil looks like, y'all. Am I being too petty? I should stop. The only difference is Dr. Phil don't have glasses on. That's the only difference. This is Dr. Phil talking about where's reparations gonna come from. He bald, got a crazy mustache. Come on now. He overweight. Come on now. Come on now. I know I'm not being too petty. And this is the dude who talking about we shouldn't get reparations. All right. Okay, Dr. Phil. Dr. Eggman. Dude. Okay. I knew he looked like somebody. I knew it. It was somebody. I was like, oh, he looks like a villain I knew from a cartoon I used to watch. And he looked like, what's it? Mr. Eggman, Dr. Eggman, whatever. I think it's Mr. Eggman. He looks like him. Oh, that's why. Yep, that's it. Okay, Dr. Phil. All right, y'all. All right. Okay. Come on now. Somebody's saying Dr. Octopus has hair, at least. At least Dr. Octopus has hair. He don't even have hair. Come on now. Look, this is why I'm going to show you all his picture again. This is why the kids, this is why kids don't like going to the doctors. You tell your kid that this is your doctor and he about to give you your flu shot. You tell a kid he's about to give you your flu shot. The kid's going to be crying, Mommy, no, please. I don't want to get a flu shot. Please, please, Mommy, I'll be good. I'll eat all my vegetables. I'm sorry. Dr. Phil is why kids don't want to go to the damn doctor. Oh, Lord. Come on now. Come on now, Dr. Phil. Okay. Okay. We've been petty. We've been petty. But brothers and sisters, thank you guys for being here. We've been in here deep, brothers and sisters. We've been in here really deep. Please, I hope every single last one of you guys are subscribed to the channel. I hope every single last one of you all are subscribed to the channel. Stay tuned. We got some great stuff, great content coming up next week. With that being said, you guys can follow me on my various social media pages. Let me pull it up somewhere around here. All right, which is Afro Elite on Instagram and The Afro Elite on Twitter. With that being said, my brothers and my sisters, all that, the links to that is in the description below. With that being said, my brothers and my sisters, be one salute to every single last one of you all. And you all, like always, have a good one.